2019 is a big year for drivers in the capital. In just 3 months' time, the new ultra-low emission zone will be up and running. Sadiq Khan says the new daily charge to drive into it is a small price to pay to clean up London's toxic air. But are you ready for them? Our political correspondent Simon Harris is in central London tonight with details of the countdown, the critics and the confusion. Simon.
Nina, this is Russell Square in Bloomsbury, where pollution levels in the form of nitrogen dioxide have already exceeded the legal limit for the year, and it's only the start of January. City Hall reckons around 60,000 vehicles a day could be eligible for the new charge because they produce toxic emissions. But the Mayor is clearly concerned that not enough drivers know about his new crackdown. They could be in for a horrible surprise. The congestion charge sign with its big bold C is eye-catching and easy to understand, but it's the small print below which drivers need to read. London's new ultra-low emission zone is just 3 months away, and the Mayor has an uncompromising message for drivers with dirty diesels and polluting petrol engines.
I don't apologise for saying that you're partly responsible for the toxic air in our city, leading to premature deaths, leading to all sorts of issues for children and adults. And unless you're able to move to a cleaner form of vehicle, you have to pay the fee.
The first stage of the ultra-low emission zone, or ULEZ, will be introduced in the central London congestion charge zone on the 8th of April. Diesel and petrol engines which don't meet the Mayor's new emissions rules will be charged £12.50 a day to drive in. The zone will be extended in October 2021 to include every street inside the north and south circular roads. The new road toll replaces the £10 toxicity charge introduced by the Mayor in 2017. But the T-charge only applied during the day, Monday to Friday. The ULEZ will be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. David Waterman runs a family business in the East End. It's one of the last cardboard box makers in London. But Mr Waterman is worried his suppliers from outside London won't know about the ULEZ, and when they find out, they'll reach the same conclusion.
There are very few manufacturers in this country of cardboard, so there's maybe 8 or 9 companies that are supplying the whole of the country, and there are very few that will come into London. So they would just turn around and say, it's just not worth our effort.
It's almost 16 years since the arrival of London's first modern road toll, the congestion charge. That was followed in 2008 by a low emission zone for lorries covering the whole of Greater London. In October 2017, the current Mayor went a step further by introducing the T-charge. Drivers are now being advised to go online and tap in their number plate to find out if they'll have to pay the ULEZ. If you talk to businesses, if you talk to motoring organisations, there is concern that not enough drivers know about what's going to happen. And this really is just the start, because as well as the extension to the ULEZ in 2021, there are also changes to that low emission zone which covers the whole of London for lorries. From next year, lorries face even tougher restrictions on what they can emit from their exhausts and could face fines of up to £1,000.
A week before the big Brexit vote in the Commons, the Met says it has enhanced its police operation around Parliament. The force says the increased number of officers will be in place in the run-up to that crucial vote after the MP Anna Soubry was branded a Nazi by some protesters, and others complained of the toxic atmosphere in general at the heart of our democracy right now. With the very latest, let's join our political correspondent, Simon Harris. Simon.
Nina, when does robust debate become threatening and intimidating behaviour? That's a question which police officers here at Westminster will now have to wrestle with after more than 100 MPs wrote to the Met Commissioner Cressida Dick demanding action. It followed yesterday's verbal assault in the streets on the former Cabinet Minister Anna Soubry. The demonstrators were back today, but they weren't the only ones determined to make a point. The police put on a visible show of force, mingling among both sides in the Brexit argument. Some protesters seemed appalled at yesterday's verbal attack on the former Conservative Minister Anna Soubry.
I want to say it was completely and utterly unacceptable what happened yesterday. Some people who were very angry came down to make a point. I'm not sure they knew what point they were making, and they ended up crossing a line that should never be crossed.
The abuse began with some protesters calling the MP a Nazi. Then they followed her back to Parliament, surrounding and heckling her.
What a liar!
These are the temporary TV studios which have become the focus of attention for some protesters. MPs being interviewed are often shouted down, but it's when they head back across the road to Parliament they have to run the gauntlet. Cherry is one of the regulars outside Parliament. She describes herself as a pensioner from a council house in North London, but wouldn't tell us her full name. She thinks the exchange with Anna Soubry was justified.
She's walking down the street and she's called a liar. She is a liar. She is a liar. She's lied to her own constituency. She will not go along with the majority of the country. I think Anna Soubry got everything she deserved.
But inside the Palace of Westminster, there's a different view about whether abuse is acceptable.
Obviously, it's horrible. I mean, you don't go into this life expecting it to be easy, but there is a difference between dealing with the kind of the rough and tumble of politics and being threatened with violence. I mean, I had on social media recently, someone said to me that they needed a bigger gallows in order to deal with me as a traitor.
I understand the police holding back and not being sure about it, but it's time they were given some instructions by the Commissioner to actually make sure that doesn't happen again.
You're the sort of politician who might normally object to the police wading in and stopping protesters.
Well, I'm all for freedom of speech. I think that's incredibly important, but that wasn't freedom of speech. That was real intimidation.
After pressure from a growing number of MPs, Scotland Yard was forced to respond.
I would expect my officers to intervene if they do witness substantive criminal offences taking place, and I would expect people to be arrested if those are committed.
There's little doubt the Met's resolve will be tested in the coming days. As MPs return to the Brexit debate, the protests will grow.
Yeah, Simon, tested and presumably not what the Met needs right now with, massive pressures on their budget already.
You'd think with the spike in violent crime the police would have more pressing priorities. But what happened yesterday is clearly regarded by the authorities not just as a new low, but as something that needs to be stamped out, something of a worrying trend. Today, the Speaker of the Commons, John Bercow, also called for robust action from the police. He too wrote to the Commissioner saying these verbal assaults on MPs, especially women MPs, were intolerable and untenable. And I think faced with such pressure from Parliament, the Met Commissioner had little choice but to do something. And today we learned from her that her officers will now be taking a close interest in what is said on the streets outside Parliament.
Simon, thank you.
The former chair of Crossrail came out fighting today at the London Assembly. Sir Terry Morgan claimed Transport for London deleted a key warning that the project would not be delivered in 2018. TfL deny this. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports on a war of words that continues while we are no closer to knowing the date when Crossrail will open.
Sir Terry Morgan is the man Sadiq Khan got rid of, but he's not going quietly. Today, Sir Terry faced the London Assembly and again insisted he told the Mayor in July Crossrail wouldn't open on time.
I don't know what other interpretation in English terms you can give to the fact that we said delivery of Crossrail in 2018 was not feasible. Full stop.
This matters because the Mayor maintains he didn't find out until August and has accused Sir Terry of misremembering.
I do not suffer from loss of memory.
Sir Terry, who was forced to resign as Crossrail chairman last month, said he wrote a briefing note for the Mayor in June, warning of problems with the communications and signalling software. But a crucial paragraph was deleted by officials from TfL. And when he updated a TfL board meeting in July, TfL officials told him what to say.
I was given a sheet by TfL about what to say at that board meeting. And that took out any reference to not being able to deliver the programme in 2018.
But later, a senior TfL executive told the Assembly the piece of paper was simply an aide-memoire requested by Sir Terry, effectively a crib sheet. The Mayor's deputy in charge of transport suggested Sir Terry had lost his grip.
And there was a real resistance, I felt, and a lack of realism from the then chair, Sir Terry, about what was actually really going on in this project.
Crossrail is now billions of pounds over budget and at least a year late. There are 9 new stations along the route of Crossrail like this one at Farringdon, but none of them are finished. According to the new chief executive, thousands of hours of work are needed before they're ready. Tonight, the London Assembly described getting to the bottom of who knew what and when as a frustrating process with contradicting accounts.
Well, Simon, have we got any clue when Crossrail will be opening?
Well, according to the new chief executive, the stations won't be ready for at least another 6 months. Remember, this railway was supposed to open last month. There's still problems with the trains, which themselves are 18 months late. They don't yet talk to the different systems of signals in the tunnels on the tracks outside. The good news is they're going to start a proper programme of testing the trains next week, which should start to iron out the glitches, but nobody knows how long that's going to take. The big question, will Crossrail open this year or next year? We don't know, but the new management say they should have a provisional date by the end of February.
All right. Simon, thank you.
Good evening. The family of Jayden Moody spoke tonight of his infectious personality, one they said that charmed everyone he met. They also demanded justice, saying no one should feel safe while his killers are free. The 14-year-old was stabbed to death on the street in Leighton on Tuesday evening. Police said those who did it knew exactly who they were targeting. The car used to knock Jayden off his moped has been recovered, but tonight there has still been no arrests. From Leighton, our correspondent Simon Harris reports.
Children on their way home from school hugged each other tonight, just yards from where their friend was murdered. They, like everyone else, wonder why. How did a 14-year-old end up the victim of London's knife crime epidemic? His mum, Jada, and one of his sisters came to the street corner in Leighton with one of his cousins.
His character was infectious, and anyone who met him fell in love with his charm. He had a huge heart and would do anything for anyone, especially his family. Focus needs to be on the fact that he has been brutally murdered in cold blood and deserves a fair chance at justice as much as anyone else.
Jayden's uncle posted this tribute to him on social media. Videos of the 14-year-old along with photographs. A snapshot of a teenager with everything to live for. The police say they think Jayden was targeted by his attackers. In other words, they knew him. But what was the motive? What could a 14-year-old boy have done to make anyone think he deserved to die? Jayden had recently moved to London from Nottingham, where he was involved in a charity supporting young people who might be exposed to knife crime.
The way Jayden came across was very polite, very humble, very respectful. And from what he was saying, it seemed like he was really, looking forward to going to London, looking forward to a new life. He had aspirations.
On the Leighton Grange estate today, police officers lowered a magnet into storm drains in the hunt for the knives used to attack Jayden. A black Mercedes was parked in this street yesterday. Police believe it's the car which was used to knock Jayden off a moped before he was stabbed several times in the back. Kim Weston came out of her flat this morning to discover her estate was inside a police cordon.
For a 14-year-old boy to get stabbed to death like that, I mean, I don't know. I had tears in my eyes, to be honest. I mean, I've got 7 grandchildren. Thankfully, none of them live round here.
Is it time for a radical rethink of the way we police our estates and streets, with lots more police officers visible day and night?
Oh, the police would like nothing more, but there are so few officers. We have fewer officers now than any time since 2003. Our population's grown since 2003 by more than 1.5 million.
Jayden Moody's family are at a loss to explain this seemingly senseless killing. Tonight, they said he had absolutely no affiliation with gangs. Simon Harris, ITV News, Leighton.
Well, we heard from our correspondent Simon Harris earlier, and he's joined us in the studio. How difficult will it be for police to catch Jayden's killers?
We need to be clear about one thing. We do not yet know the motive of this attack. We do not know if Jayden was mixed up in drugs and gangs. His family say he had no affiliation with gangs. But because the police are using the phrase he was targeted, it is an obvious line of inquiry for detectives. Clearly, that is something they are looking at. Now, I spoke to people on that estate in Leighton where the Mercedes was found. That's an area, Waltham Forest, London Borough of Waltham Forest, which has a particular drugs problem, as Ria was talking about just now. And the people I spoke to talked of drug dealers openly carrying out their transactions in broad daylight, blatantly on pavements. It's been going on for years, they said, and nothing is ever done about it. These people were too scared to appear on camera, as indeed was somebody who said she saw the attack. She was too scared to even talk to the police. And the problem is, when people are frightened, they're unlikely to volunteer information to the police.
OK, Simon, thanks very much for that.